example we can take here, we have shown the example of wheat is taken. So cultivation or growing of only wheat on a large scale is known as crops. Now mainly there are two types of crops, that is kharif crops and rabi crops. So kharif crops are the crops that grow from June to September, and rabi crops are the ones which are grown from October to March. Now there are 2 months left here. After March we have April and May. These are the 2 months where no crops are grown because of the extreme heat. There are a high chances that firstly there will be no rainfall or very minimum rainfall, and secondly there are chances that the crops may get burned due to the extreme heat, or the crops may get spoiled. That's why these are the 2 months where there is no cultivation done. Kharif crops are grown from June to September, and these are the type of crops which require snowy or rainy season. And then we have rabi crops which are grown from October to March. These require winter season and don't require that much amount of rain or not that much amount of moisture. An example of kharif crops we have here: paddy, maize and cotton. Paddy is known as the cultivation of rice. Rice, we have often seen that it is very watery fields it is grown in. That's why it's known as the kharif crops. And maize and cotton are also kharif crops. Rabi crops we have wheat, gram and peas. Now there are several types of agriculture practices involved, from sowing the seeds to the packet of grains coming to a house. Now let's see what are the following processes. We have 7 steps. Let's see them in brief. Now the first step is preparation of soil. Now what do you mean by preparation of soil? So before sowing seeds, this is the very first step, which is turning and loosening the soil by plowing. So what do you mean by turning and loosening the soil? Turning and loosening the soil means using a plow or a plow. You can see over here machinery uses are done. So plow comes under traditional methods, and here we have a machinery used. So basically if the soil is kept still at one place for too much of amount of time, then it becomes rock hard. You might have noticed it at your homes as well. That's why loosening of soil, turning is basically you're making holes in the soil, you're breaking that hard soil particles and turning it into very porous soil. So as we can see, it's given here over here. We allow roots to penetrate deep into the soil, and it also helps in the growth of earthworms, and it brings nutrient to the top of the soil. Now what are the tools which are used for plowing? So we have plow, hoe and a cultivator. So plow and hoe, these two come under traditional methods of cultivation, whereas cultivator comes under modern method of plowing. So plow and hoe, we can see here the images are given. So we have seen in many farms that to bulls or to cows we have attached the plow over here, and then we have a farmer or a laborer here which helps by putting this plow deep into the soil, penetrates the plow into soil, and then we have breaking of the hard soil particles. And hoe is basically, there is no use of animals over here. A farmer or a laborer will do it by hand or manually. And this is a cultivator machine. So we can see over here, it is a tractor which is driven in the farms. It is used at many places. It saves labor and a good amount of time. Now second step we come to is sowing. Now sowing, we all might know, which is planting the seeds into the soil. After loosening the soil, we have to plant seeds, and mainly we have to plant HYV seeds. Now you might wonder what are HYV seeds. So HYV seeds are high yield variety of seeds. These are high yield variety seeds. HYV seeds, also known as good quality of seeds, these are mainly. So HYV seeds, which are high yield variety of seeds, ensure that maximum production will be done. So sowing the seeds are not basically just scattering the seeds over the field. We have to place them inside the soil, and it has to be at an approximate distance, because if the seeds are placed too closely, then the roots won't have enough space to spread over, and if they are placed too farly, then the land amount is wasted. Now there are two tools for sowing. One is a traditional tool and another we have a modern tool. So traditional tools, it is shaped like a funnel. This is very rare these days. We only see seed drills mainly. So over here we can say that manually the person is sowing soil. This is a very time taking process in this. That's why traditionally this funnel shaped tool is used. Otherwise commonly seed drills are used these days. So now this is the traditional tool. It is a funnel like shape. As you can see, it is a funnel shaped over here, and there are two farmers required over here, which one will hold the funnel and the other one will have to place the seeds through the funnel, and it will end somewhere over here. And in the seed drill, it is again done by the help of tractors. The seeds will be placed at a perfect distance and depth. Now the third step we come to is adding manures and fertilizers. This is the most important step, because after planting or sowing of seeds, there are chances that there are some insects, except for earthworms. Earthworms are the farmers' friends. They help in planting and farming. Except for earthworms, there are many insects, or might have seen birds are there, which will ruin the crops, ruin the soil. So over here, and then it is a possibility that the soil will get depleted. So we have to add additional nutrients for the healthy soil and healthy growth of plants. Now these are known as manure and fertilizers. Now what is the difference between a manure and a fertilizer? So a manure is the organic substance which is added to the soil, which is made from decomposition, and fertilizers are chemical substances that are made in factories. So manures we can make at home as well, but fertilizers need to be made at factories. Manure are basically decomposition of plants or animal waste. Dead plants or the plant roots are there, and the animal waste which is there, the urea, excreta, using that we mix all of that substance to make manure. Whereas fertilizers, these are chemical substances like potash, urea and nitrogen, a combination of which is then added to the soil. Now what are the advantages of manure that fertilizers don't have? Now it also enhances the water holding capacity. It not only adds nutrients but also enhances the water holding capacity of the soil. It makes pores or holes in the soil, and it increases the number of friendly microbes. Now it also increases the soil texture. So manures are anytime better than fertilizers, because fertilizers are eventually chemicals. It will harm the soil now, but manures are a complete natural process. That's why they are anytime better than fertilizers. Now coming to our fourth step, which is irrigation. Irrigation basically means watering the soil. Now the supply of water to crops at different intervals is known as irrigation. So watering the crops at different intervals or watering the crops at different times is known as irrigation. Now of course, water is very important for proper growth and development of flower, fruits and seeds of the plants, and water also protects the crops from both frost and hot air currents. So now if it is a rabi crop, then it will be grown in the winter seasons, and adding water to it will avoid the crop from getting frost or getting very cold and then ruining the crop. Whereas if the crop is grown in hotter regions, then again adding water will help the crop from not getting burned. Now what are the sources of irrigation? We have some traditional sources of irrigation which are also used right now. We have wells, tube wells, ponds, lakes, rivers, dams and canals. So you can see wells are over here. You can see tube wells and lakes, rivers, ponds, dams and canals. We have not shown the picture over here. Now coming to our fifth step, which is harvesting. Now the cutting of crops after it matures is known as harvesting. So the 2 months which were left, which were the gap from kharif crops and rabi crops, which we had April and May. So these are the 2 months where the harvesting is done of the crops. The crop when it matures or when the crop is fully grown, then the harvesting of the crop is done. We can see over here by a machine. From a machine used over here, we can see the crop is being cutting down. Now the crops are either pulled out by roots or they are just cut close to the ground, and grain seeds are separated from a shaft known through threshing. Now depends if we are doing the crops or the cultivation of grains, so we not need to pull out the entire crop, we can just cut close to the ground. Whereas if it is a vegetable which grows underground, for example we have carrots, then it has to be pulled out. Now what are the tools which are used for harvesting? First we have a sickle and we have a thresher. So a sickle is again comes under traditional methods, whereas a harvest or thresher comes under modern methods. Over here we can see a bigger picture of a thresher is used over here. This is a thresher, a modern method of harvesting. Now we are coming to our seventh final step, sixth, seventh and final step, which is storage. So now what do you mean by storage? Storage is the crop should be protected from moisture, insects and rats, microorganisms, and it should be kept for a long time. So storing of crops means after harvesting is done once. Then after harvesting we need to store the crops until they are not sold in the market. And farming, when it's done on a large scale, it is not that we have 2 or 3 bags of crops. It is thousands of bags of crops which we obtain in the final harvesting step, and all of these huge amount of crops can't be sold at the same time. That's why we need to store it particularly, and it needs to be protected from moisture, insects, rats and microorganisms, because moisture will again ruin the dry crops, and insects, rats and microorganisms will also cause harm to the crop.